Hello, my name is Byron Dossett, and today I will be talking about the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is located on the Blue Nile River in the Benish-Angul Gumuz region of Ethiopia, about 30 kilometers southeast of the Sudan border. Once it's completed, it will be the #1 largest hydroelectric dam in Africa and the 8th largest in the world. This project is owned by the Ethiopian Electric Power Corporation, and in 2011, a $4.7 billion engineering contract was awarded to a company named Seleni Construttori. So the dam is designed to be 1,780 meters long and 145 meters high. It has a rated capacity of 5,150 megawatts upon completion and under full load, with 13 Francis-style turbines. As of February of 2022, 375 megawatts are online with only one turbine in operation. This 5,150 megawatt maximum capacity has some engineers skeptical on whether or not the dam will ever be able to achieve this. According to calculations done by a mechanical engineer in California, taking into account the size of the dam, the height, and the flow rate of the river, the dam is oversized by about 300% and would be much more economical at a smaller size. They state that the average energy production of the dam is only likely to get around 2,000 megawatts, and if ever to achieve maximum load, it would only be during the 2 to 3 month rainy season, if at all. Likely the design of the dam was influenced heavily by political factors rather than by pure engineering analysis. The dam was constructed using roller compacted concrete. There will be 2 power stations, 3 spillways, and a saddle dam, as well as a huge 75 billion cubic meter reservoir which will supply water to the dam. So Ethiopia had little luck in raising funds from outside countries and resorted to selling bonds to citizens of Ethiopia and by convincing citizens to contribute a portion of their income towards the project. China, a country who has invested heavily in other power generation projects in Africa, invested $1 billion to the GERD project in order to supply turbines and electrical equipment. During the construction since 2011, approximately 8,500 to 12,000 people were working on the construction for this project at any given time. I couldn't find how many people this plant will permanently employ once it's complete. However, I did get an estimate by taking the 200,000 people currently working the hydroelectric industry in the United States, dividing that by the 80.25 gigawatt capacity of hydroelectric power in the United States to get about 2.49 people working in the hydro industry per megawatt capacity. At this rate, 13,000 people will be employed by this project in Ethiopia. Since the 200,000 people in the United States includes people that are working at the construction of the plant, I subtracted the 10,000 people it took to construct the dam and came up with roughly 3,000 people to operate and maintain it. Again, this is not completely accurate, but it's the best I could do with the information I was given. When many people think about Ethiopia, they probably don't think about a thriving and fast-growing economy. Yet since 2004, Ethiopia's economy has been growing at an average rate of 10% each year in terms of GDP. This is far greater than the United States average GDP growth rate of 1.81% per year since 2004. In fact, during the years of 2013 to 2018, Ethiopia was the fastest growing economy in the world, excluding very small countries which tend to skew this value. However, as of 2019, only 48% of people in Ethiopia had access to electricity. At a current energy consumption in Ethiopia at just over 2 gigawatts, this 5.15 gigawatt expansion has enough energy to supply the rest of Ethiopia's population with power, as well as a surplus of 3 gigawatts, making them a potential net export of energy. An estimated energy sales of $1 billion annually has been projected for energy sales. However, it is to be noted that there is skepticism over the rated capacity. That being said, even at half the rated capacity, that's still enough to supply the rest of the population with energy, as well as increase Ethiopia's infrastructure capabilities. This will no doubt have a huge positive impact on the productivity of Ethiopia's local economy, as well as the quality of life for the citizens of Ethiopia. The effects on the local environment. Although, according to Ethiopian officials, the flow through the river will be relatively unaffected once the dam is fully operational, the filling of the reservoir was expected to take anywhere between 3 and 7 years. This filling will undoubtedly decrease the amount of water flowing downstream to Sudan and Egypt. An estimated 12 to 25% of the flow is expected to be cut from the Nile in Egypt. This is very concerning as 95% of the water in Egypt comes directly from the Nile. And with Egypt already being water scarce at 570 cubic meters of water per year per person out of the minimum 1,000 cubic meters of water per person required to not be water scarce, this only adds to the struggle for water in a country where 95% of the population lives near one river. That's 95 million people affected. The reservoir is also estimated to evaporate 3 billion cubic meters of water per year. That's 3 times Egypt's annual rainfall. One upside to this dam is it can help alleviate flooding upstream in places like Sudan, which suffer from flooding yearly. However, when looking about how Egypt's agriculture cycle works, Egypt relies on the flooding of the Nile to fertilize its fields during the rainy season in order to grow crops during the growing season. As you can see on the graph, Egypt's population has been growing all the time, and ever since the mid-90s it has actually entered this water scarce situation. And this will only exacerbate this issue. The 2 pictures on the bottom, you can see Ethiopia has the dam. To the left of the dam is the reservoir, and the right picture is Ethiopia's reservoir is filling. It is to be noted that in, I believe, February of 2020, Ethiopia began filling the reservoir, regardless of the concerns of the upstream communities. So a couple of mistakes I made in the last slide. The flooding in Sudan actually happens downstream, not upstream. I just misspoke. And the reservoir actually began filling in July of 2020, not February of 2020. Getting that out of the way, let's talk about geopolitics. So as you can see on the right, we have a map of the Nile. So the White Nile and the Blue Nile combine and enter the main Nile, just the Nile. The Nile flows from south to north. It is notable that Egypt gets the tail end of the Nile, and the Nile originates in these countries down here. So, the White Nile originates in Lake Victoria of Uganda and only supplies about 15% of the total flow rate through the Nile. The Blue Nile originates in Lake Tana of Ethiopia and supplies about 85% of the flow rate through the Nile. This is a notable fact as Ethiopia was not brought into the agreements on the policies made about the Nile's water, what was to do about it, how it was to be allotted. And only recently has Ethiopia become more of an industrialized nation. In 1995, Ethiopia gained its independence. Anyways, in the early 1900s, along with the industrial age, came a lot of projects along the Nile. Dams and irrigation systems were constructed along the Nile in Egypt and Sudan. This led to a drastic change in the river's properties, and it was clear that the flow in the Nile was finite. In 1929, the Nile Water Agreements were signed by Egypt and the British, which then represented Sudan. This ensured that Egypt received all of its needs for water. This agreement stated that Egypt was to be allotted 48 billion cubic meters of water per year, and Sudan was allotted 4 billion cubic meters of water per year. Most notably in this agreement, Egypt reserved the right to veto any upstream construction projects that would affect this water supply. And again, Ethiopia was not a part of this. In 1959, a rendition of the Nile Water Agreement was written and an agreed flow rate of 84 billion cubic meters of water flowed through the Nile each year. This measurement was taken off a dam in Sudan. The allotted water was also increased to Sudan and Egypt to 18.5 and 55 billion cubic meters of water per year, respectively. The agreement allowed Sudan to build 2 dams for water storage, power production, and irrigation. This allowed for an entire year's worth of water to be flowed in, water flow to be stored in the reservoirs, 84 billion cubic meters. It is important to note that Ethiopia was not a part of either of these agreements. Despite having 85% of the Nile's flow coming from the Blue Nile, it was not involved. So wrapping things up, the ability for Ethiopia to go from half of its population not having power to becoming a net exporter of energy with one project is amazing, all in the course of just over a decade. This dam will no doubt have a massive boost on the economy of Ethiopia and tremendously improve the quality of life for millions in Ethiopia. The potential drawbacks, however, are great for the people of Sudan, but even greater for the people of Egypt. Moreover, Egypt has been the political power over the Nile for thousands of years, and the thought that Ethiopia has the option of simply cutting off their main source of water at any moment is an existential fear for the people of Egypt, in a time where rising temperatures due to climate change have already caused unpredictable food production shortages and water shortages. Sudan is in the middle. While the upstream dam may affect the performance of dams in Sudan and affect the water supply through the Nile in Sudan, cheap energy and the control of flooding are a benefit. Time will tell what becomes of this project, but one thing is for sure. As populations surge in these environmentally strained environments, the commodity of water will soon be more valuable than oil in an already overheated world. Thanks for listening.